very good day to you. I hope you had yourself an amazing day. This is the Black Hot Fire updates. And of course, I'm here to give you all the updates on what was happening throughout the whole of Africa today. And I have news from all over Africa. We're going to be looking at news from Congo, where Congo's president is calling for sanctions against Rwanda. Why is he calling for sanctions against Rwanda? Because he believes that Rwanda is the one that has been funding the March 23 movement that has been terrorizing people in DRC. So now Felix Tshisekedi is calling for the sanctions against Rwanda. I'm going to be looking at Congo's M23 rebels, a rebel group that has been really terrorizing the people there for quite some time now. We're going to be looking at where it came from and, of course, a little bit of history on it. My screen has frozen, so I hope you can still hear me. So we're going to be looking at the March 23 rebels in Congo, and of course where their origin and what has led to its spread, and the fact that Congo is so insecure at the moment with more than 100 armed rebels operating in different regions. And my screen has still frozen. I don't know if you can hear me. I hope you can still hear me. We'll check on that in a minute. Propaganda, nini? But ilibidi nimedisconnect kwanza nini. Imebidi nimedisconnect hivyo kwanza ni kamera iko imehang pia.
Jua tu ni propaganda umeandika hapo.
Small technicality. Thank you, Jiba. My screen had frozen, so I couldn't see anything, but I'm back. So talking about Rwanda and how Congo's president Felix Tshisekedi is calling for sanctions against Rwanda. He believes that Rwanda is the one that has been financing the March 23 movement. The March 23 movement is a terrorist group. I would call it a terrorist group for lack of a better term, that has been really terrorizing people in especially DRC.
Over the past 25 years, the resource-rich eastern provinces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo have served as operating bases for multiple rebel groups. The March 23 movement, commonly known as M23, is among more than 100 armed groups operating in this region where conflict is escalating, especially in recent months. For some, M23 is an expression of popular anger over a dysfunctional Congolese government, corruption and abuses that historically have...
But the fact is the March 23 movement is a group that has been set just to destabilize Congo, and it has done so in for so many years. So today, was it yesterday, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi was calling on the international community to sanction Rwanda for its role in destabilizing his country. Is he wrong? He's not wrong, because it has been established that it is indeed true that Rwanda does fund, not fund, is used in the funding and financing of the March 23 movement. So that is reports. Several reports show that, but I don't believe it's Rwanda in itself that does the funding and does the financing. I believe somebody else uses Rwanda to finance the March 23. At one point, Rwanda actually admitted to having forces in the border. They said that they had the forces inside Congo just due to the security situation in Rwanda, so they had to protect their border. So the March 23 is supported by Rwanda, and it has, according to Tshisekedi, he was saying that at the moment it has led to the displacement of 7 million people in the DRC. 7 million people have been internally displaced by the fighting so far. UN experts, not the best put quote, are saying that between 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan troops are operating in Congo alongside with the M23 rebel group, which has been in conflict with Congolese troops for more than a decade now, for a long, long time. So 3,000 to 4,000 Rwandan troops are operating alongside the March 23 rebels in Congo. That is according to UN. So Tshisekedi was calling to the same UN, asking it to intensify its action to implement the recommendation of the Global Coalition Against the Islamic State, of which DRC is a member. So that was it was literally begging the UN to come to its aid and help stop Rwanda from funding the M23 movement, which has been terrorizing the people of Congo for the longest. So let me see what is the origin of Congo's M23 rebels according to this video, which we're going to debunk if wrong.
Been particularly felt by Congolese of Rwandan origin. But for others, M23 is the latest in a long line of Rwandan-linked rebel movements that represented a proxy for the economic or security ambitions of Rwanda.
Yeah, just remember the EU also called on Rwanda to stop funding the March 23 rebels. So literally the whole of Europe and all those other bodies, the UN, and have many times openly blamed Rwanda of supporting the March 23 rebels in Congo. So far in Congo, there's so much happening in Congo at the moment with the mining, and most of the mining is being done by the Chinese. By the way, most of the mining in DR Congo is being done by the Chinese. So now, for the fact that the West and everybody else is blaming Rwanda on the violence in Congo, then what that means is the whole shift blames to Rwanda. Nobody looks outside that. So now everybody blames Rwanda for the violence in Congo. The violence, the destabilization, the chaos, and of course, especially the destabilization has been happening for the longest. So, as I said, I do believe Rwanda has a role. It's the one that is used to finance. It's the one that is used. Mark the word used. Because I don't believe Rwanda has the capacity. It's a poor country. I don't believe it has the capacity to finance a war that has been happening for the past couple of decades. And I don't think Rwanda has that capacity, financial muscle to support and to spark a war in a neighboring country. And by the way, Burundi also blames Rwanda of the war that is happening there in Burundi too. So I don't think Rwanda has that much of financial muscles for it to destabilize all the other countries surrounding it, with Burundi, with DR Congo, claiming that both of them are being destabilized by Rwanda. I do think Rwanda has been getting used to destabilize countries in this region. And they use it because they know it's going to be a good smoke screen. It's going to be a good scapegoat just in case. So if you ask, well, why is there a war happening in Congo, they're going to point at Rwanda and say, ask Kagame. But in reality, Kagame does not have the financial muscles. Neither Rwanda does not also have the financial. Rwanda as a country also does not have the financial muscles to start, spark, and maintain a war for all that time.
In this episode of African Biographics, we look at the origins of Congo's M23 rebels who are currently wreaking havoc in the country. The DRC suffered two destructive conflicts following the collapse of Zaire from the early 1990s and the overspill of regional conflicts, notably Angola's long-running civil war and the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide onto its territory. The first conflicts in the Congo saw the decades-long dictatorship of Mobutu overthrown by a rebel coalition largely based in the east of the country, with the strong backing of Rwanda, Uganda and Burundi, and the tacit approval of wider African and international opinion. Mobutu was replaced by Laurent Désiré Kabila, a veteran rebel widely seen as a puppet for Rwandan and Ugandan interests. The Second War in the Congo, which started around 1998, was launched following Laurent Kabila's rejection of Rwandan and Ugandan control, an attempt by Rwandan troops to overthrow him, and attacks on Congolese civilians of Rwandan origin. During this time, a rebel coalition, the Congolese Rally for Democracy (RCD), was born, again with its roots in the east of the country, and again with significant Rwandan and Ugandan backing. Uganda also sponsored a separate rebel group, the Movement for the Liberation of Congo, which was led by former businessman Jean-Pierre Bemba, who became vice president of the DRC following the 2002 Luanda Agreement. This time around, however, the DRC's other neighbors, who were gathered under the banner of the Southern African Development Commission (SADC), intervened to protect Kabila's administration and also help Congo's largely dysfunctional army. Congo's national army is also known as the FARDC. By 1999, this conflict had reached a stalemate, with the United Nations mission deployed to monitor the front lines. Furthermore, relations between Rwanda and Uganda broke down to the point that their armed forces fought battles over the strategically and economically important city of Kisangani in the DRC. The RCD rebel group would split into a Rwandan-backed wing, the RCD Goma, and a Ugandan-backed wing, the RCD Kisangani Movement of Liberation (RCD KML). There were other rebel groups involved in the conflict at various points, and these included groups of the local self-defense militia, collectively known as Mai Mai, which often, though not exclusively, allied with the government. There was also the RCD National, a splinter group from the RCD KML that eventually allied with the MLC. There was also the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR, a Rwandan Hutu rebel group also based in eastern Congo that includes some perpetrators of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. I'll touch on the FDLR a little bit more later. Of all these groups, the RCD Goma emerged as the most powerful of the original rebel movement and retained control of the regions over the border from their alleged primary backers, the Rwandan government. This area, which includes the provinces of North and South Kivu and the town of Goma, quickly evolved from a quiet lakeside resort to be.
The reason it emerged to be one of the most powerful rebel groups in the midst of many other rebel groups was the backing that it got. And it has been established that the backing came from Rwanda, but Rwanda is the middleman in the whole of this because not many people want to be seen, not many countries, not many imperialists want to be seen directly involved. They don't want people knowing that they're the ones behind the chaos and the wars, because they want it to look like an African affair. It's Africans sponsoring Africans to kill and fight other Africans. So we have nothing to do with it. And now it's easier even for them to come and steal in the middle of all that, because it looks like the war is none of they're not to blame for the war in any way. And so the reason that the group ended up being a very powerful one is because of the funding that it was getting, of course, from not only Rwanda, but from all the other imperialists through Rwanda. So with better artillery, with better weapons, of course, with more finances, it was going to become the more dominant group, rebel group among the others.
Become the trading and political center of the rebellion. Amidst this chaos, Laurent Désiré Kabila was assassinated in 2001 and was succeeded by his son Joseph Kabila. A long-running peace process held largely under South Africa's stewardship finally came to fruition with the Sun City Accords of 2002. The transition in the Congo culminated with elections in 2006 which were won by Joseph Kabila. Unfortunately, these election results were not accepted by a significant proportion of the main rebel groups. Consequently, powerful RCD Goma units, which had also refused integration into the national military, once again launched a rebellion. In July 2006, these RCD Goma combatants had been reconstituted as the National Congress for the Defense of the People, the CNDP, under the leadership of General Laurent Nkunda. A Congolese Tutsi born in Ruchuru, north of Goma, Nkunda had previously served in the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the RPF, the rebel force that deposed the government which perpetrated the 1994 genocide. Nkunda would later serve in the Rwandan-backed rebel coalition that installed Laurent Kabila as president of the DRC during the First Congo War. One of Laurent Nkunda's key men was Bosco Ntaganda, a Rwandan-born Tutsi. Bosco Ntaganda also fought with the RPF in the early 1990s and participated in the overthrow of the Hutu-led Rwandan government in 1994 following the genocide. Bosco Ntaganda was a key player in various conflicts in the Great Lakes area, most notoriously during the intercommunal violence in Ituri in 2002 that briefly threatened to reach genocidal proportions. Bosco Ntaganda was indicted by the International Criminal Court in 2006 for his role in this violence and was thought to have been acting, at least in part, to avoid arrest by the Congolese government in starting the new rebellion. As this conflict was going on, both the UN mission, which by now had become a fully fledged peacekeeping operation, and Congo's FARDC were powerless to stop Ntaganda and his CNDP from retaking control of a significant proportion of the former RCD Goma-held territory, including lucrative mining sites and trade routes. Also during this time, direct Rwandan backing for the CNDP was widely alleged but never proven. After several months of heavy fighting and abortive peace talks, General Laurent Nkunda was deposed by his deputy, Bosco Ntaganda, in January 2009, and on March 23 the same year, the CNDP rebels and the government signed a peace agreement providing for the integration of the CNDP into Congo's FARDC. This March 23, 2009 agreement also proposed action on a number of long-standing grievances felt by Kenya-Rwanda-speaking Congolese populations. However, even after the deal, the CNDP continued to maintain a parallel chain of command, and the ex-CNDP units were never fully integrated into Congo's FARDC.
There you have it. The reason it's called the March 23 movement, the M23, is because on 23rd March 2009, the National Congress for the Defense Forces of the People, the CNDP, signed a peace treaty with the DRC government where it became a political party, and the M23 soldiers integrated into the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are called the FARDC. So March 23, M23 takes its name from the date of peace accords that were signed. It was March 23, 2009. That is when former members of the rebel CNDP were, which are, by the way, the CNDP was what translated into the M23. So former members of the rebel CNDP, which is allegedly sponsored by the neighboring Rwanda, were to be accumulated into the army. That was in 2009. So far, the M23 has killed, don't know how many people it has killed, but the fighting in the DRC has caused so many deaths, and of course, Jibazaba is asking me who names a rebel group FAT, but in DRC there are more than 100 armed groups, so it's easy. You're more likely to run out of names when you have all those groups fighting. But anyway, that is the March 23, been causing havoc and destabilizing Congo for the longest. Is it backed by Rwanda? It is. Does Rwanda have the financial muscles to back up and maintain a war for that long? It doesn't. So that tells you that Rwanda is just but a smokescreen. In Burkina Faso, moving away from the March 23 rebels, in Burkina Faso, the security minister is claiming that Burkina Faso foiled an attempt to, a coup attempt. There was an attempt to destabilize the country. That is according to Burkina Faso security minister, Mohamedou Sana. He said that individuals residing in Cote d'Ivoire have been involved in submissive activities against Burkina. So he accused 14 people of plotting the destabilizing attempt, among them junta. Most of them were junta opponents. The leader of the so these are the people who are there who are mentioned. Most of them were the junta opponents. The other one was the leader of the January 2022 coup. There were 2 former ministers, 2 journalists, and other unidentified conspirators from including Western intelligence officials. So it's not a lie. Burkina Faso is claiming that there are 14 people who are planning a coup, and they just were able to find out before it happened. Among them is the junta opponents, the leader of the January 2022 coup, 2 former ministers, 2 journalists, and other Western intelligence officials, all planning to destabilize the government of Burkina Faso. So they are saying that the plot was devised by some Burkinabe civilians and servicemen living abroad who paid and trained armed groups to conduct attacks. That was the first phase of the coup. Look like they had phases. They had gone into phases. The second phase included attacks on the presidential palace, a military drone base, and an airport. The last phase was attack near the Ivory Coast border. These phases were prevented by the Burkinabe army, that is according to the security minister. The first phase was successful, which the first phase of the alleged plan was the jihadi attack that killed 100 people in central Burkina Faso last month. If you can remember, more than 100 villagers were shot dead by armed rebels. So now that is the Burkinabe security minister is saying that was the first phase of the coup attempt. That one was successful. The second phase included attacks on the presidential palace, a military drone base, and an airport. That one, the Burkinabe army was able to foil before it could happen. The minister said that several arrests were made in Niger, leading to that is what led to the dismantling of the plot. And to do that, the Burkinabe government has now launched a special anti-terrorist operation to neutralize any remaining threats, and has warned that such destabilizing actions will be met with, including death sentences. Yep. So it looks like they are sick and tired of Burkina Faso to a point that they have been trying to overthrow the Burkinabe government for the longest. You heard that in this specific one, which was being organized by Western intelligence services, junta enemies, and some few Burkinabe people who are ready to take Burkina Faso back to poverty in order for them to benefit. Yep, they were ready to. And the Burkina Faso government was just lucky to foil the attempt to destabilize the country. And as you heard, the first phase was successful, and the first phase saw 100 people dead. So now that is what is happening in Burkina Faso. With not so many people are happy that Burkina Faso is about to succeed, and it has been doing amazing. So of course there is going to be more and more of such attacks. The WHO is reporting that almost 30,000 people have mpox in Africa at the moment. In a recent report, the WHO has stated that they have been almost 30,000 suspected cases of mpox. According to the UN health body, a majority were in the DRC, which has been having a very uptick number in cases, along with its neighboring country, Burundi. They have already sent vaccines there. In DRC, people in DRC are already consuming monkeypox vaccines to prevent them from getting the monkeypox that has affected that high number of people in Africa, the majority of them being from DRC. So the fear factor worked. People are sold fear. People bought the fear because the fear factor worked, and they would share pictures of people with monkeypox, and you would see how messed up they are, and nobody now wants to get monkeypox, and now the numbers are getting inflated. talking about we have more than 30,000 cases in Africa, and majority of them come from your country. And if you don't take these vaccines, you're going to get monkeypox. So that has led to, of course, people now taking the vaccines which are already on the ground and being issued, they're already being given to people, the monkeypox vaccines. That is to cap the 30,000 cases that we have in Africa so far. The African CDC, that is the Center for Disease Control, already declared monkeypox a global, an African emergency, and the WHO went ahead and declared it a global emergency. So that is why they are channeling all the funds and all the resources and all the available time to the monkeypox vaccine. Yep, I don't need to go and explain further on why they are really working on the monkeypox vaccines. In Ghana, police were arresting dozens of protesters who denounced the government's handling of the economy. So Ghana's police have arrested so many people who took to the streets of the capital to demonstrate over perceived economic mismanagement by the government. So the police, when asked on why they arrested and tear gassed and acted above what they are supposed to act, they said that some in the crowd were attacking officers. So they said that the demonstrators had gathered unlawfully, and therefore they had to be dispersed. Remember, these demonstrations are coming ahead of Ghana's presidential election. Ghana is going to be having its election on December. At the moment, the country's financial situation is what voters are thinking about. It's what every aspirant is trying to sell to the people, because at the moment, the economic situation is not so good in Ghana. Battling with inflation, battling with the high cost of living, and so many other things. So that is why the economic situation there is not the best. So Ghana is going to have its election in December. Inflation has gone up to 54% at the moment. So we're going to see what is going to happen in the elections. But even before we get to the December election, people are tired and already in the streets protesting. And they are mainly protesting against the government's handling of the economy. It doesn't make them happy. It doesn't look good. The economy is being mishandled. It's already in ICU and it's still getting mishandled, which is not sitting well with majority of Ghanaians. Anyway, that was all I had on the Black Hot Fire Thursday updates on a day where Congo's President Felix Tshisekedi has called for sanctions against Rwanda, accusing Rwanda of not only financing but training and giving even soldiers to go fight alongside the March 23 rebels in Congo, which has destabilized the country for decades now. So he called on to the UN to sanction Rwanda. It is also a day where the Burkina Faso government is claiming that it foiled a coup attempt that was meant to destabilize the country. 14 people are arrested, most of them being former junta opponents, leaders of 2 former ministers, and unidentified Western intelligence officials, who are the ones that wanted to mess up Burkina Faso. WHO is reporting that almost 30,000 suspected monkeypox cases in Africa have been recorded, and it has sent vaccines to the DRC to help with the same help. Ghana is also arresting dozens of protesters who took to the streets to denounce the government's handling of the economy. That was all I had. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. This has been, let me check the comments real quick before I leave. General Mosquito is with me. Good day to you, General Mosquito. Hope you're having yourself an amazing Wednesday. And Jiba Jaba, I hope you're having yourself an amazing Thursday too. It's not a Wednesday, it's a Thursday. I hope you're having yourself an amazing Thursday too. And Jiba Jaba says Ghana could be a paradise on coffee and cocoa alone with proper management, not even counting on the mineral resources that we have. But unfortunately, the mismanagement there is too much, and it's almost impossible for them to, because as Jiba Jaba is saying, if you had proper management and market control, then Ghana can easily become Africa's economic hub with the cocoa, with the coffee, with the minerals. But of course, that is not going to happen with the current leadership. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. It's always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Much love.